Good evening, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Bhakti Community. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to our program today, Bhakti On, where we'll be discussing the topic Living Like a Lotus with a speaker today, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. Vaish was on a spiritual tour to India, and we are very happy and glad that he's back. So, thank you, Vaish, for joining for another episode of Bhakti On.
Of course, where else would I go? Have to come back home here to Bhakti On. Great to see you all. Thanks for joining in tonight. We're discussing one of my favorite topics, to live like a lotus. In fact, a lot of modern medicines come from mimicry of natural phenomena, and there are numerous metaphors about spiritual practice that come from natural phenomena also. Krishna uses them in the Bhagavad Gita. And one of the most beautiful is of the lotus. Of course, the lotus is considered by many to be one of the most beautiful flowers in the world. And it also has properties that we can emulate. Before we get started, however, because everyone's coming in from being involved one way or another with life circumstances, I just thought we'd take a few reflections before we start on your day. One thing that you're grateful for that happened today. It's a nice exercise. I do it with my wife every evening before we go to bed. Just say three things we're grateful for. And I noticed that as soon as we start the exercise, we both start smiling and everything changes. So, what do you think? Yes, Denise.
I'm grateful for JM's smile. He's
Yeah,
always he's always smiling.
I know.
It's the
We're
best
have
part of
to,
the whole program.
we're going to have to get to the bottom of this. We'll have to bottle it up somehow and take a little bit every day.
Uh-huh.
Thank you,
His
Denise.
his
Uh,
wife might be the reason.
what might be?
His wife might be the reason he smiles throughout the day.
Yeah, that's it. I think you hit it immediately. You found it out. Fantastic. Okay, let's have a few more. What one thing are you grateful for from today? And just notice everyone's smiling anyway, because thinking about gratitude, I heard two people on a street corner once, and one person was complaining, and the other person responded by saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm just trying to be grateful." And I noticed that it was a shield from gossip or from a conversation that was descending into acrimony and a sense of wanting to complain about somebody else to make oneself feel better. So, okay, go ahead. I'm slowing you down. Who wants to go next?
Oh,
One thing
sorry,
you're
I'm
grateful
I've
for from today.
unmuted. So
Yes.
hi everybody, Hare Krishna. Sherelle here from sunny Queensland in Australia. I'm grateful to be here and receive and share. And I'm also grateful to be able to share this recording with anyone else who may receive it. And it's hard to narrow down gratitude because I feel like I live in gratitude for most of the day. So I'm just, yeah, very much feeling the love.
Oh, thank you very much, Sherelle. It's an avalanche of gratitude coming down on
Yeah.
you. Let's have
Yeah.
three more. Yeah, go ahead, Sherelle, keep
Oh,
going.
I once said to one of my meditation teachers, like anxiety attacks, sometimes I just feel like I'm in like a love attack. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Lavanya just said she's grateful to be in this class for the past 6+ years. Wow.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
I didn't know we've been doing it for 6+ years. That's now I feel grateful for hearing. Please go ahead. Tell us.
Yeah, I joined during the pandemic, and yeah, I mean, I love this class. I cannot tell how much it changed my life for the better. So thank you so much.
Amazing. When we were just on a retreat in India that JM mentioned, we'd start each retreat by talking about the simplicity of the process of bhakti. And the verse that I invoked from the Srimad Bhagavatam was about how when you come together as a group and you discuss spiritual topics and hear other people's realizations, then there's a natural upliftment. It happens, as they say, by osmosis. So thank you very much for being here for over 6.5. We should have some kind of an award for, the 5-year mark, with to speak of six plus. Premanishta's got her hand up. Uh-oh, we're getting a cascade of gratitude going here. Go ahead, Premanishta.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to be around people in the last week who have actually dedicated their lives to bringing this spirituality to everybody, and I just felt a lot of gratitude for them. It's because of the people like them that I'm here today, and I really appreciate, and I have a lot of gratitude for them.
Yeah, association. It just rubs off. And when you're around those who are spiritually advanced, it pulls us up too and makes us feel practically unworthy that what did I do except for just hang out? Okay, Tadagat.
Hare Krishna. So I'm in India right now and it's 6 a.m. So I'm really great. So the day is just starting. So I'm really grateful that I woke up and I'm able to like at, have all of your association and being able to attend the class. So
I love it having you on the opposite side of the day from some of us. What time is it also in Australia?
It's 10:30 a.m.
Okay, we're trying to cover the spread here. Fantastic. Great to have you up here. Yeah, and I like that you're able to wake up and feel grateful. That's something I noticed when reading the book called Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the person named Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, after he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the next morning, after he had a change of heart, he woke up by saying a spiritual mantra and he felt grateful for his life. So it's fantastic. We can live it. Let's do one more. I volunteer. I feel grateful for this book I'm reading. It's by Mukunda Goswami, and it's called Miracle on Second Avenue. I've read it before. I was afraid to read it again because when I finished it, I was so sorry it was over. I literally felt some grieving process for several days. It was hard for me to function. So I was afraid to open it again, but here I am in the middle of it. We're reading it in a couple of places, and it just takes me into a spiritual vortex. Somebody else had their hand up.
Akanksha.
Akanksha, we want to hear from you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so this might sound like a little funny, but for me, the biggest accomplishment after coming in contact with Bhakti community is that I've started screaming a lot less. Earlier, even the minutest of things would irritate me, especially my little kids. And now, like, that has gone down significantly. So one full day without screaming is a big win for me. And then I did not I had a performance review at work where I had to evaluate someone from my team, and that kind of went well. So I'm grateful for that. And thank you so much for having me as a part of this community.
Wow, that was fantastic. Yeah, I put it up on the chat. There is an index. It's a Scream Less index. You can judge how you're making advancement by the reduction of screaming or whatever its counterparts are in anybody's life. That's practical because, as it mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, giving the analogy of eating for making progress in bhakti, when you eat, when you're hungry, you feel nourished, you feel satisfied, and your hunger goes away. And when you're practicing genuine spiritual life, then you naturally scream less. That is the impulses that naturally overcome us at various intervals. We notice their reduction, and it is a notable phenomenon that we feel more in control of our senses. Thank you for sharing that, Akansha. Wow, I feel better already just sharing a little gratitude. And let's go into the lotus flower and talk about the metaphor that Krishna has given us. It's helpful to have a metaphor. I read a book about metaphors and how metaphors guide human beings through their lives and also help them overcome problems, and also important points in history when metaphors were used for people who wanted to achieve great things and they depended on metaphor. Yes, Miracle on Second Avenue by Mukunda Goswami. Maybe it's available on Amazon. I've had my copy for a long time. I think it was published by Torchlight, if I'm not incorrect, but Namaj and Tomini can put it up in the chat. Okay, let's go a little bit into this and we can have some discussion. Live in the world without getting smeared by it. Now, that may sound funny, smeared, but who likes to get smeared? There's a particular kind of flower. You may or may not know about this flower, but it's called a stargazer. Stargazers are extremely fragrant, and they have a stamen that has lots of pollen on it. And if you bump into a stargazer and you get the pollen on you, it will not come out. At least I haven't discovered the solvent that will take out stargazer schmear. And this world is a place in which we're easily smeared. And then we get things on us that are hard to get off. We have encounters in the world, either voluntarily or involuntarily, and we end up with impressions that just do not go away very easily. And the art of living in the world is something that humans have pursued for a long time. Art of living, Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita, how to be in the world but not be smeared by it. Anybody here ever been smeared by something? Yeah, especially if you have a brand new outfit. That happened to me. Somebody sent me a really nice logoed t-shirt. And whenever I get an article of clothing from somebody, I immediately put it on. As soon as I open the package, I just switch into that because I'm so excited to get it. And it was funny because I had just put it on and the thought went through my mind, downstairs you have stargazers in your room, don't rub up against them. But as, I don't know, is it Murphy's Law? That somehow or other I had to plug something in and I forgot the stargazer was there. A brand new t-shirt, I only had it on for like 10 minutes and I noticed a smear from the insidious stargazer. And the pollen was there. And sheepishly, I went back up and showed to Nirkula, my wife, and I said, well, that just happened. So is there a way to live in this world and be impervious, a word we can use in relationship to the lotus, which means that water runs through it and doesn't touch it. I think certain fabrics are like that also. So that's the topic, and it's coming from a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. In the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very interesting and practical chapter in the Gita, where Krishna talks about how to live your life in such a way that you don't feel overwhelmed by the world and you stick with the main point of your life, even as you're doing your other duties. That's the topic of the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And the verse is listed here, and it says, one who performs his or her duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. So that's the verse. And yeah, let's let that sink in. And I'm going to stop there just for a second and see if anybody has a guest they invited that they would like to introduce, or if somebody's here for the first time who'd like to say, hey.
Or also maybe after a long time you come back. We'd like to hear from you too. I do see a few people have joined after some time. So yeah, newcomers, rejoinees, just feel free to say hi. Go ahead, Nama.
I'd like to welcome back Mesa. She's joined before, but she's hasn't come for some time because of her work schedule. So,
Hare
yeah.
Krishna. Thank you, Nam. I'm very grateful. Sorry, I'm driving. That's why I think I had my camera on before.
Okay.
I'm driving to work, so it's lovely to be back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maisa. I'm not going to say much more because I want you to concentrate on the road. I mean, I'll say much more in this class, but I don't want to distract you personally. Anybody else want to say hey or welcome back? We can welcome you back or welcome for the first time. Well, welcome back to everybody. All right, let's keep going, JM. Okay, so this verse is a metaphor. And Krishna invokes the lotus flower. And looking at the verse more carefully, we have this point about performing your duty. So we have various duties to perform in life. So we have to work to eat for the most part. Most people have some obligation to keep a roof over their head. We have other duties, for instance, to family. We don't put in for a certain family. We just come out and there's the family and we're in the middle of it. So we have to perform our duties there. Any other duties we have to do in our lives that you can think of? I just named job, profession. I hope I didn't take them all. Job, family, anything, any other duties? Government, got to pay taxes, right? They don't have taxes in Australia, right?
They do.
Oh, they do. Okay. It's ubiquitous. Duty to yourself, yeah. You have duties to your body. Your body needs a little maintenance. You have to take care of it. You have to walk it, otherwise it gets cranky and ratchety. So there's a lot.
Duty to
And what else?
Duty to love Krishna and serve.
Yes, that's our transcendental duty and the ultimate duty. Thank you, Sherelle, for bringing us back to the point. And this is one of the main points is that although there are obligatory duties as we live our lives, our ultimate duty, keeping in mind what's the purpose of life, as the Vedanta Sutra says, Tato Brahma Jignasa, keep asking the question, what's the ultimate purpose of my life, so I don't get overwhelmed by all the other duties and then I forget what I'm doing. And I might even fall into bad association and get smeared. And sometimes people take to a spiritual practice and then they fade away somehow and then they regret it later and then they have to make a comeback, which is fine and kind of natural. So what about the lotus? Let's look into it a little bit more. The lotus. This next picture is a great challenge of life, how to live fully in the world without becoming entangled by it. If you look at some of the lotuses there, we have this interesting picture with this woman walking on water practically. And on one side represented is represented the frenetic pace of the world. On the other side, we have the serene lotus pond. Incidentally, I've seen lotus gardens before and tried to take a little time there. Osaka, Japan. There's a botanical garden that's famous for its lotuses. There are various kinds of lotuses. In fact, they have 32 different lotus flowers there. So I have 32 separate small ponds in which the lotuses grow there. And I spent one afternoon there one summer when I was in Osaka. And I just sat with each one of them for a little while and meditated on this concept. It's helpful because Krishna gives this metaphor, and then I got to look at the lotuses and watch them as the wind would blow, the water would splash up on the lotus flower, and indeed, the water would bead off. Meanwhile, it's so radiant and beautiful on the top of the water that it was not a difficult task to sit there and observe the lotuses for some time. So, what's the secret? There's a technical term for the lotus called super hydrophobic. Can you say that? Super hydrophobic. Super hydrophobic technically means something that is impervious to water. And you see the picture of the lotus there. It's dripping with water. You say it's impervious. How do you mean? It has, I'll read you something from a technical point of view about super hydrophobic. Super hydrophobicity, I'm going to tell you about. These are from some technical journals. First and foremost, the lotus has a life cycle unlike any other plant. With its roots latched in mud, it submerges every night into river water and miraculously reblooms the next morning sparklingly clean. As a result, this has led to the lotus having associations of the flower with rebirth and spiritual enlightenment. And super hydrophobic means that although the water touches it, it never adheres. And in fact, the word is related with a phrase in biology called the lotus effect. It's a certain kind of entity. And there are bugs like this too. If you've ever seen water bugs, we have them here in California. They skate on the top of the water. And it's as if they're not even touching it, practically. They also have super hydrophobicity. So that's its nature. And so what's the metaphor about? It's about how we can become like the lotus. And that's why we made a movement and a logo called Live Like a Lotus. It's a logo. And what's the secret? Well, according to the verse we heard in Bhagavad Gita, we see everything through eyes of service. It seems like such a small switch, but when we see through eyes of service, we're impervious to the entanglements of the world. We rephrased it as super Maya-phobic. Maya means illusion, seeing things in a distorted way. Our alignment comes through eyes of service. Now, this is a thought experiment. Just think of a time when you felt frustrated for one reason or another, or afraid for your own circumstances. And then you thought about how to serve somebody else. Well, I'll just give a preface to this. There's a book by Dale Carnegie that I've read, and it's called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And in the book, he gives anecdotes of people who are in dire situations. Has anybody here ever been in a dire situation? Let me give you the definition of dire, and then you can respond. Dire. Of a situation or event extremely serious or urgent, of a warning or threat, presaging disaster. Wow, that is pretty intense. I'm sorry to even bring it up, but has anybody here ever been in a dire situation? One person. I'm going to come move in with the rest of you. Oh, okay, there's a few more. So what he says in the book, does Dale Carnegie, when you're in a dire situation. There's a way in which, when you think about how to do service to somebody else at that time, it takes you out of your life situation and the oppressive feeling that you have for that, and transfers you into another way of looking at the world. And this is the verse, Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyakva karotiya lipitena sapapena padma patram vivambasa. I'm just reciting the verse. And there, Krishna is saying that if you live in the world, but you're not trying to claim anything as your own because you're using it for a higher cause, whatever it may be, house, car, your money, your health, your abilities, your talents, and you use those for service. And what's implied in the Bhagavad Gita is service to Krishna, or service to the Supreme. It's the best service, because when you serve Krishna, it's like watering the root of a tree, then all the leaves and branches automatically become nourished. But if in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says service is so important that even if you don't have such a concept of a supreme, then just try to render service locally somewhere. That's in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, just try to be charitable. Try to do something for someone else. Start there, and you'll notice that it immediately takes you out of the oppressive sense that you have of being crushed by the world or smeared by it, by the circumstances. And so bhakti yoga is called devotional service. Devotional service. You're doing service. Lots of people do service. In fact, there's an anecdote in a book called the Chaitanya Charitamrita about a king who saw the monk, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he had tens of thousands of followers. And the king noted to his secretary that this person must be divine, because these people, they're following without being paid. He said, I have tens of thousands of followers, but they only serve me because of the threat of being punished. And also I pay them. And therefore there's a gulf of difference, he said, between the kind of service they're rendering to Chaitanya and the kind of service that my minions render to me. And we can introspect and observe the quality of service that we offer. And this is the crux of the matter. This is the Lotus's secret. You can be in the same environment as somebody else. You might even be in a corporate job. But if you're considering, I'm doing this job to maintain my health, my life, and I'm using the results of my work here in order to advance my spiritual practice and to do good for others spiritually, then you're not touched by the situation. You're not smeared by it. That's what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, the secret of the lotus. Ajayam, I think somebody had their hand up. I saw it in my peripheral vision, but I didn't catch who it was. Did you? Did somebody raise their hand and want to comment? Okay. If you do, just let us know.
I didn't raise my hand, but I just wanted to say that this perspective is just so relevant, especially when we're at work and sometimes we don't get to choose the people we want to work with or the projects that we get. And sometimes we think that, you just feel like, why did I get this set of people to work with? But I think maintaining that perspective that I'm here to serve, and it like somebody, at least how I think about it, is somebody would have prayed really hard to Krishna that get me someone who can do this job, and that's how I landed here. So there's like a, so to speak, a higher LinkedIn, uh, and that's how I look at it, and I say, okay, I'm here to do my duty, because somebody would have prayed really hard that that they get someone, and so I'm here to serve Krishna and do my job. But that perspective helps me sometimes get through difficult days. Um, and I think the whole point of view that you had around the lotus is just so relevant, which is you stay focused but don't get touched by everything around you.
Wow, thanks, Chunky. That was fantastic. A real life testimonial when you're in the midst of your duties and you didn't choose your association necessarily. You have to do it because it's necessary. Still, this principle works everywhere, and you can move through circumstances unscathed. I don't know what scathed is. Somebody look up scathed. I wonder, there's unscathed and there's scathed. Is there such a thing as being scathed? Let's take a quick look. We'll take an etymological break here and check it out. Akansha, what is it? Let's see the definition of unscathed. I don't even know where it comes from. Is the research department working?
Yeah, it says injure,
To
harm, injure, case,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, it comes from German, to injure or damage. So you come through circumstances without being damaged, without being injured, endure, unscathed. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, let's look at another slide. We're getting close to a story. I'm going to tell a story. I hope you like stories. It's getting close to the payoff. Where are we, JM? Let's see where we are. Okay, so, here's something. Lotuses bloom again every morning. They go to sleep at night. They close up when the sun goes down. Of course, most of us do, right? I was just on a little spiritual break, 5 days, and I went to a place where I could see the sun rise and set. And that was very healing to be there for the sunrise and for the sunset every day. It get my circadian rhythms back in balance because I've been traveling so much. And the effect of the sun in Ayurvedic medicines talk about the rhythms of the universe and the planet and how to be in harmony with them. Sun goes down, we fall asleep. There's a phenomena for people who have dementia called sundowning. When the sun goes down, they become very disoriented. I was once talking to my brother about that, and I was noting that phenomenon. He says everyone becomes disoriented when the sun goes down. We all just go to sleep. We give up. It's like, forget it. Especially when you're in a place where there's no electricity. If you've ever been in that situation in the mountains, like if you go hiking or camping in the wilderness, and you're not on the electrical grid. When the sun goes down, everyone just goes to bed, unless there's a campfire. And then once the embers, die down, you just go to sleep. We need that guidance, that light. Practically, when it gets dark, we just shut down. But the lotus shuts down at night and it comes back every morning. It's a rebirth. And so I'll talk a little bit about this for a second. I'll give you something that you might find interesting. This is from one of the great teachers of Bhakti called Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He talks about 5 levels of consciousness. And all entities in the world, they're all spiritual beings. Plants are spiritual beings. You can't convince me otherwise. I have a plethora of plants outside this little place I live here. And they all have little personalities. Some of them are very aggressive. And they all propagate and continue their lives every year. In any case, before I get into gardening stuff, this is called covered consciousness. Trees and plants They're spiritual beings, just like everybody else, but their consciousness is covered. Then they're animals, and we start noticing in animals basic emotions. And so this is called contracted consciousness. Then you have human beings. It's called budding consciousness, because the human life has this promise of fully awakening. And when one is in human life and you have a spiritual practice, this is called blossoming consciousness. Your consciousness can blossom. That's humans with sadhana. Sadhana means spiritual practice. And then finally, there's fully blooming consciousness, humans who have achieved the highest level of spiritual practice. It's called prema, pure love for the Supreme, for Krishna. And so we can think about this metaphor a little more because it's a plant. It goes to sleep at night, awakens, fully blooms at a certain time. And yeah, I have more to say about that, but I want to see the next slide. That's the next slide? Okay, well, I promised a story, so I'm going to talk about it now. In fact, I'm going to read you something I wrote. Just a vignette. And it is as follows. This little vignette is called Cycling Back to the Spiritual World. And can you tolerate this for a minute? Me reading something that I wrote? I need a consensus, otherwise I don't want to torture anybody. Okay, I got a couple hearts, so that's good enough for me. In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, a new program in one of state prisons. In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, a new program in one state prison enlists inmates in pedaling stationary bicycles, specially equipped to generate usable electricity. The electricity that each convict produces is exported to a popular city park outside the prison, where it illuminates the streetlights around the periphery of the park. Not only this, but when the prisoners volunteer for this task, the warden reduces the length of their prison sentence according to the number of hours they cycle. The journalist who broke the story remarks that prisoners are eager to sign up for this program because through their service, they not only feel useful, but also experience a sense of connectedness to the free world outside the prison walls. Living beings in the darkness and isolation of the material world are often compared to prison inmates. Offering relief to these detainees, in the Gita, verse 316, Krishna advises them to apply the Pavartitam Chakram, or the wheel of sacrifice or service to the Supreme prescribed in the Vedas. Commenting on this wheel of sacrifice, Srila Prabhupada, who gave commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, says Krishna created this material world to enable the conditioned souls to learn how to perform sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme, so that while in the material world they can live very comfortably without anxiety, and after finishing the present material body they can enter into the spiritual world. As the prison cyclists of Rio reduce their sentence and feel relief by performing some small daily service, one who applies him or herself to the cycle of divine sacrifice recommended in the Gita, that's Bhagavad Gita, feels satisfaction by being at once linked to Krishna in the spiritual world, even while living under the prison-like restrictions of this dark material world. Moreover, Scripture says that Krishna destroys the karma of those who engage in spiritual service and cuts the length of their stay in the material world. The Bhakti yogis joyfully join this cycle of divine service each day by carefully chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, that's a spiritual literature, and offering their food to Krishna before eating it. So when I read about this, I love the connection. First of all, what I was charmed by was that the inmates felt useful and they felt a connectedness to the outside world. You can just imagine being locked up in the jail and just feeling disconnected from the world. And they felt that connection by doing that service that supplied light for somebody else. Boy, that's nice too. If you give light to somebody, what more can you ask for? And at the same time, at a practical level, their sentence was being reduced. So this is the principle, the Lotus principle is to serve. And just as prisoners generate electricity and shorten their sentences, spiritual service connects us to the spiritual world and frees us from karmic bondage all at the same time. Comments, reflections, complaints.
I really loved the
Money
story.
back. You want your money back guarantee. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really loved the story, and as you mentioned, the point that they felt this connection with the world where they want to be, and could just felt they could feel that they're useful and they're also contributing to the world while they're trapped inside. So I really loved the story.
Me too. Yeah, thanks, Premanishta. Fantastic. Did it strike anybody else? The story itself, any aspect of it you want to comment on?
Great story. Great
Yeah?
story. Yes. They peddled their way to freedom
Yeah, pedal your way to freedom. Fantastic.
in many ways.
Yes, yes.
Very good story. That's such a heartwarming story.
Yeah, I felt that too. Heartwarming. Radhakripa?
Yes, I felt, even whatever situation we are in and how much it, maybe not comfortable or worse situation it would be, you could still be useful. I think that feeling, I'm thinking, we sometimes the circumstances may not be favorable for us and we would be thinking we may not be of any use, but still you can be of use if you be of any service in any shape and form. So
It's universal, isn't it? I mean, when you think about how any situation you're in, if you flip the service switch and start thinking through service mind, you become an insider. It assuages the sense of fear and angst that you may have by being, and it's our nature to serve. We feel happily aligned when we're in service, especially when we have this over arching vision of how the world fits together and how it all comes from one source, and how by serving the source we serve all beings. There's some service we may do imperfectly, and we're doing service, but it becomes a disservice to somebody. And so having it perfectly aligned, that's why they call it devotional service. When you do it with devotion to the Supreme and you engage in something that's authorized, it's been passed down to you as a service, then you feel satisfied and connected. Do you have more, Radhakripa?
No, I was just also thinking you shared some time ago how to be insider. If you go and you go in a big place where you feel like you're a guest, but you're, waiting for people to serve you. But if you suddenly flip the switch and then try to help them, and within a moment, everybody else start thinking, oh, you're from our side, come on in. So I really like that. I have given that example to many times to a quick switch to become part of the mainstream. So
Yeah, I've seen people become heroes in 2 seconds because, in traveling, you see all kinds of circumstances, people are crowding. It's funny, people getting on a plane, that they're jockeying for position. You're thinking, it's not going to take off till we're on there anyway. But in any case, there are circumstances where you see people are in anxiety, but then somebody might it just spontaneously do something to help somebody else, even the smallest gesture. And people look and think, oh, I wish I was like that. I wish I had done that. It's such an exalted mode of life to be in, to think of how to do the greatest good for others. In fact, there was a seminar about this. It was 5,000 years ago. It was at a place called Naimisharanyam, which incidentally means the place where nobody blinks. And they're so attentive to the subject matter. There was a gathering of sages, and they all came together to discuss what was the topic. It was how to do the greatest good to all living beings in the universe simultaneously. And they got an abstract at the very beginning from their teacher, Sutta Goswami. He said, Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktiradhoksaje ahetukiya pratiyata yatma supersediti. The way to feel completely satisfied and to attract the most auspiciousness in your life is to serve the Supreme uninterruptedly. You know, sometimes we serve, but then we get interrupted. What if you're able to do it all the time? Then you're like the lotus. You're in the world, you're in the situation, but because you're fully immersed in the service attitude. But it's not some lofty thing. It is a lofty thing, but it's not unavailable to us. It's available at every second, and it's not something impractical. If you live with somebody else, you can change the situation immediately. I can speak from experience. Yet if you live with somebody else and you're thinking, how can I be of service here in the relationship? Then immediately it's a sanguine relationship when both are thinking, oh, let me serve. How can I help you? How can I help you? If that's the mode, then there's no friction really. And so that's applicable everywhere in all times and places. That's how lotuses live in the water without being disturbed. Okay. Yes.
Can we just cycle back to the story?
Good one.
There's a lot of talk in Bhakti about escaping the illusion and the prison, I guess, the analogy that you mentioned. And I feel like when you're walking with Krishna and in Krishna and serving Krishna, there is no need to escape. Like we're here, we're now. Like just this idea that there's somewhere better than being here. Sometimes, it doesn't land for me because how much better can it get when we're in love?
Yeah, it's such an important point, Sherelle. Thanks for bringing it up. When thinking about this topic, recently I read a book written by Judson Brewer. And what's the title of the book? I forget what its title is. I didn't look at the title. I just read the book.
Something about anxiety.
Yeah, it's cycling back on anxiety, or anyway, Jan will give it to me. And I read it because I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. We have a discussion. And he talks about it. He's a psychologist. And one of his specialties is overcoming addictions. And so there are states that we can fall into in which we're trapped or we're ensnared by our own senses. This is one of the points Krishna makes in the Bhagavad Gita. So you used another metaphor about escaping and saying we have to, sometimes people talk about escaping illusion. And so there is a stage in which we may feel that we're ensnared. For instance, people oftentimes want to do something, but then they feel they can't. They're too addicted to looking at their phone, or maybe it's some other kind of stimulus to their mind or something like that. So they do feel somewhat trapped. And much to your point, in the book, he talks about how it's not that we're just trying to get free from something, but we're trying to rise to a higher level of vision and experience. And Krishna talks about this in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says that even in the beginning stage, when we realize that we're being oppressed by our own senses, we can't just neglect them or just try to break free from them, because we'll come right back to it. A point that Judson Brewer also makes in his book. It's,
Unwinding Anxiety.
Unwinding Anxiety. And so Krishna makes this point in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Vishaya vinivartante nirahara sadehina, which means that when you're struggling with your senses, habit loops, and you can't get out of them, you feel trapped. So how do you escape? Well, not just by breaking out, but he says, param drishva nivartate. Drishva means to see something, and param means better. When you see something better, you have a better perspective, then you naturally give up the lower perspective or the attachment that you have, and you have something better. So it's very true what you said. And there's a devotee, Vaishnava, a poet, who writes about how the material world is the abode of joy. Everywhere he looks, he's talking about how it's joyful. And why is that? Because, and this is a statement from one of Prabhupada's writings, he says, because a devotee looks at everything in the world as paraphernalia to be used in the service of the Supreme, and therefore sees everything as joyful, and there's no separation at any time. So it's a switch in perspective. And I think some of this is just semantics, really, because the Vaishnava philosophy is not just to escape. We're not into escapism, but we're into realigning our intentions. And our intention in bhakti is devotional service. We're doing service out of devotion, not out of drudgery, not out of obligation, but voluntarily serving the Supreme. Denise.
Oh, also Judd said, like, be curious. Like, if you have anxiety, instead of like throwing yourself into this loop of anxiety, be curious. And there was something that you said, it was almost like that. But anyway, I was trying to catch it. But then you said so many things afterwards, and I thought, I didn't grab it.
I hate that when I do that.
Yeah, yeah. It was something
Yes.
like it was like Judd says, be curious, and you were kind of saying the same type of thing, like turn it around in some manner.
Yeah,
Oh well.
it is one of the main points that he makes in his book, and about be curious, because there are all kinds of stimuli coming into our mental systems. And rather than just accepting, rejecting, feeling overwhelmed by them, be curious. Where are they coming from? Who said that? Like somebody else wrote a book, like, Don't Believe Everything Your Mind Tells You. And that's similar in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna gives this perspective of a self-realized person who's able to step back from the impulses coming into his or her mental system, and be curious about them, not be carried away by them. Thank you for that point, Denise.
We have so many stimuli, so many indriyas coming in at the moment too, with everything that's going on in the world, that you can just grab onto things and it can put you in a tailspin, right?
Yeah, another metaphor, tailspin.
Tailspin. Be curious about the
That's
tail.
like a plane going down, right?
Oh my gosh. That's why
Yeah.
I had my hand up earlier and then I put it down. So my dad was a pilot, and my brother and I were in a plane with him, and it was our friend's plane, and the plane was nose heavy. It's called a Mooney. And so we were coming in for a landing, and the Mooney, he wasn't used to flying planes that were so heavy in the front. And we nose dived, and we went in between a barn and a telephone pole, and my brother grabbed me and he said, "This is it, we're dead." And he grabbed the plane and the wheel of the plane, and just like we went sky right up into the air. And then his friend, who's a general, he said, "Okay, Joe, take it down again." Never even, like, totally level personality, didn't even affect him. And my father took it down and we landed, and we're like, oh God, that was really taxing. anyway, that was an experience.
Yeah, such experiences can give us a new lease on life. Well, talking about life, I'm just going to make a few final points about the Lotus.
Just one thing was
Yes,
the habit loop you mentioned. He mentioned the Habit Hunger book, the another book which he released.
habit, hunger.
Hunger. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I got more reading to do, I guess. A lotus, in case you didn't know, lives long. Lotuses live for many, many years. And it does so by self-regulating its own temperature. So how does this relate? We have daily practice that is regulating our senses through practice every day in bhakti. And a lotus has unparalleled beauty. This is slightly tangential, but fact is, the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita is that we crave beauty. It's not that we can just cut out the world and walk away, try to break away from illusion, but we want to be enamored of something that is so beautiful that we're enraptured by it. And that is what the word Krishna means. It means he who enraptures us. It's so attractive. All of our senses become absorbed. And that's the ultimate state of yoga, is to be fully absorbed in the ultimate object of attraction. And we talked about being untouched with the water, but also I like this point of being born every day. This is something the lotus does. I started talking about it, but the lotus wakes up with the sun every day and starts expressing itself again. And we can do that too. Just like Tathagata was rejoicing in the fact that he got up early today to join the program. And this is the life of devotional service, is getting up early with a strong purpose to practice and then blooming, opening up. So it's good to have that awakening every morning to our real purpose. And so the practice in Bhakti Yoga starts in the morning, best before the sun comes up. Practice I've been engaged in since I was talking to my brother, and he was saying, oh yeah, you have to get sunlight on your eyes every morning when the sun comes up, because he knew I was traveling a lot. And then all of a sudden I started seeing that everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. So I said, well, sounds good to me. So wherever I travel, I always try to find out where I'm going to get the best perspective of the sun coming up. And then I position myself there in the morning time and watch the sun come up. And having a ritual every morning to practice means you can rebloom every day and start with the right purpose in mind. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Does anybody have any last quick comments they want to make? Oh, yes. Namich and Tamini, please go ahead. And then
Yeah.
Akanksha.
I've been going and seeing the sunrise for the last few days, and I can see it's really so energizing. And I'm really fortunate to live near a place where I just have to walk 5 minutes and I have a really beautiful view of the sunrise. And I can sense on the days that I do that, when the sun goes down, I'm tired and I'm ready for bed, even if it's just 8 p.m., which is usually very early for me. So I'm noticing how watching the sunrise really impacts my sleep time as well. And I also wanted to really appreciate Janaki's point of changing perspective when you're in a difficult situation. I heard one person on Instagram say that when you're dealing with a difficult person or a difficult situation, you can just tell yourself, what a pleasure, and what a pleasure to have this experience. And that can change your whole experience. And I really like that. And just saying those words feels really powerful. Thank you for this session.
Oh, thank you for leaving some extremely important points. And Akanksha, for the close, you get the last word. Oh, Theus does. Okay, go ahead, Akanksha.
To you, Prabhu, so We talked about scathing, unscathing.
You got to get closer to your mic.
Can you hear me better now or no?
2% better.
Let me know if this is any better.
Okay, that's a little better.
Okay. So we talked about scathing and unscathing a few minutes ago. You asked us to search the meaning. And I want to know one thing, that being critical, I mean, we shouldn't be affected by criticisms. But does that also mean that we shouldn't be critical to someone?
No, we should be critical, but in a helpful way. We get through life by being critical because we have to distinguish what's more important than other things. And so criticism just for its own sake, just to tear somebody else down, of course, is pernicious. But if we're critical and we examine ourselves and we examine others, now, as far as being critical of others, it's best to be critical when people ask you to be critical. For instance, like say you have a coach, and if your coach isn't critical, what use is the coach? Like my yoga teacher is always telling me, no, don't do that, move here, don't that. No, no, moving constantly saying what I'm doing wrong. And I deeply appreciate it. And so, if somebody signs up for your criticism and says, please correct me, then you tell them. If you just give free advice, you're not going to be very popular. We could say more about this, but we're out of time. And Deus has the last point.
I was just thinking, Prabhu, about how you were talking at the beginning about duty and one of our duties, and how sometimes waking up in the morning and doing things early, it can start as a duty, like, and how that can actually progress, like how it's, for me, it's still like a duty, like waking up, like I put there, like I have to do it, but like it's been helping me tremendously to realize other things, like having that as my duty, like to see the sun, to wake up early and do the swings.
That's an important point. It's the mainstay of human life, is being dutiful, is we can. Duty is a very high concept. It means I'm doing something not because I necessarily like it, because it's the right thing to do, and because it has to be done. And of course, there's higher motivations beyond that as well, like love. That's even higher than duty. Well, thank you, Teus. And the last thing is here definitely brings a positivity plus good vitamin D. I believe that Lotus also relates to the life of the human cell. It's super hydrophobic to the plasma, not fully attached cell still moves around. It does its daily duties. That's a really nice place to end. It gave me a visceral sense that there's plasma running through my through my veins and bones, and it's good to know it's super hydrophobic. I feel more ready to meet the world knowing that the very substance of my body is super hydrophobic. Thank you, everybody, for joining for this little Bhakti bite here. We just had an hour, but hey, we did it. And we referred to Bhagavad Gita and we churned it as much as we could. I hope everyone got something that you can take away and be happy and see the sunshine tomorrow morning. Or, yeah, tomorrow morning, whoever you are, wherever you are.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. I'm so happy to have you back. And I heard my teacher. I was listening to recordings while I was on my break, and the thing about Haribol I've been telling you about the yogis in the Himalayas. Well, he told me it comes from even before them, and he said it's a shortcut to chanting Hare Krishna. And he said sages have been saying it for millennia. And so whether you feel like a sage or a yogi in the mountains, let's try it and say Haribol.
Haribol!
Everybody, see you
Thank
soon
you.
somewhere on the
Thank you.
path.
Hare Krishna.